Computer, do the intro for me.
Hello and welcome to our channel. Today, we're going to delve into the fascinating and controversial topic of lawsuits against AI art. As AI technology continues to advance, the line between human creativity and machine-generated art is becoming increasingly blurred. With this, come a number of legal questions and challenges, including issues around ownership, copyright, and trademark protection. So, what exactly is at stake in these lawsuits, and how could they impact the future of AI art and artists? Stay tuned as we take a closer look at the legal battles shaping the AI art world on this edition of Reels and Gavels.
Thank you for that stunning introduction, Computer. Now, for those of you that don't know, which are probably very few of you unless you've been living comfortably on a ranch in Montana with no access to internet, it sure looks like it's only a matter of time before artificial intelligence will be fully writing YouTube videos for me and editing videos as well. In fact, there are already AI programs out there that are impersonating content creators on YouTube and Twitch.
Dude, that's a tough one. I mean, logically, the unstoppable force and immovable object would cancel each other out, right? Like you put them together, there's nothing you can do. But then again, maybe it's possible that the unstoppable force wins. Yeah, that's how I'm going to see it. But I'm also not a scientist or anything, so who knows?
Is chat good today? No, they're terrible. They should feel bad for scaring me like that. Oh wait, I'm also not real.
Hey Yvonne, I heard a really funny joke yesterday. What did they call the bear with no teeth? A gummy bear.
Kind of scary stuff. So it may not surprise you then that several artists are suing the developers of a number of popular AI art generation tools for copyright infringement, among other things. The defendants in this case are Stability AI, the developer of Stable Diffusion and DeviantArt and Midjourney, which provide their own AI art generators that rely on Stable Diffusion to create their AI art. In short, this lawsuit is premised on the fact that the artist's original works were used as a small piece of the large dataset used to train the Stable Diffusion software that's then used by applications created by Midjourney and DeviantArt to allow users like you and me to create AI art all without the permission of the artists. So Stability released Stable Diffusion in August of 2022. Stable Diffusion is an AI image product that produces images in response to certain text prompts. Dream Studio, Midjourney, and DeviantArt's Dream Up are all in short web products where users like me can generate AI images with these text prompts and which rely on Stable Diffusion as their underlying software. So to create this impressive diffusion software, Stability allegedly scraped over 5 billion images from various websites to be used as a training data for Stable Diffusion. And when I say scraped, it essentially means not only kind of copy, but sort of scan and understand all the data, everything that goes into creating a certain image, and then compiling those data sets into a unique database that the AI then uses. Stability did not seek consent from either the creators of the training images or the websites that hosted these images from which they were scraped. The lawsuit alleges that Stability embedded and stored compressed copies of these images within Stable Diffusion, and that Stable Diffusion used the compressed copies in generating its output in response to text prompts. So in other words, some artists, they made a painting, they drew a picture, and then this company scanned this picture, took all the data, and used it to create other art, which they're essentially arguing is copyright infringement, that it's just their art, derivative works of their art that is being resold to people around the world.
Oh my God!
But how does this software work? So according to the complaint, the word diffusion in Stable Diffusion refers to the technique the software uses to generate output images that are similar to those in its training data. Diffusion operates in two phases. The first phase of diffusion is to take an image and progressively add more noise to it in a series of steps. When I say noise here, it pretty much means visual junk. Think of it like a Jackson Pollock painting where you're just throwing different paint at the wall and seeing what happens. And at each step, the program records how the addition of noise changes the image. By the last step, the image has been diffused into essentially random, unrecognizable noise. The second phase is like the first phase, but in reverse. Now you're taking all that noise and regenerating some sort of image. Think of this whole process kind of like that scene in Watchmen where Dr. Manhattan gets obliterated by some kind of particle beam, I forget what it was exactly, and then he has to reconstruct himself on an atomic level, basically recreating each cell and becoming a person again. The complaint explains this process as simply mashing up 2 or more pictures and creating a third picture. It calls this a 21st century collage tool. The complaint goes on to make the distinction that unlike a real artificial intelligence like your ChatGPTs, it's simply using search terms to mash up pre-existing images. For example, let's Google cat, hat, and skateboard. Then let's take these 3 copyrighted images and just kind of splice them together. Voila, we've outdone Stable Diffusion, at least according to the plaintiffs. It may, however, be a lot more complicated than that. So what are the chances this lawsuit has any kind of merit? Well, I'll be honest with you. I think this lawsuit gets a lot of things wrong, some of which I don't fully understand given the technical nature of this new diffusion and AI software. But from what I've gathered so far, the diffusion programs use data from training images and their associated text to identify the essential qualities of objects and to discover relationships between their fundamental elements, not to mash up pre-existing images in the way I described earlier. A good way to think of this is these programs are sort of like art students. They're learning about various techniques and styles of how to create art rather than elementary students that are gluing various images onto a collage for their art class project. Once the AI is trained, it's creating entirely new works from the ground up. It's not really creating derivatives of any particular image. It's using what it's learned to create art by itself. So the complaint's repeated description of Stable Diffusion as a 21st century collage tool doesn't seem to be accurate. Some experts opine that when it comes to potentially infringing actions committed by the developers of these AI tools, the most likely infringer in this whole process is the party that scraped the images, because that's really where the reproduction or where the infringing act might have occurred. But even if you did that, even if everything else goes in your favor, you'd still have to contend with whether this type of data gathering and scraping is fair use. Computer, can you explain how fair use might play a role in this case?
The concept of fair use in relation to AI-generated art is still evolving and may vary depending on the jurisdiction. In general, fair use is a legal doctrine that allows for the limited use of copyrighted material without obtaining permission from the copyright owner. When it comes to AI-generated art, some argue that the use of copyrighted material in the creation of AI-generated art may be considered fair use because it constitutes a transformative use that creates something new and different from the original work. However, others argue that the use of copyrighted material in AI-generated art should not be considered fair use because it is not sufficiently transformative and may harm the market for the original work. Ultimately, whether a use of copyrighted material in AI-generated art constitutes fair use will depend on the specific facts and circumstances of each case.
Thank you, computer. So the big problem with this lawsuit is that none of the AI images are argued to be reproductions of the underlying artist's work. It's not like the programs are adding something to a recognizable image. They're creating entirely new works. The complaint tries to argue that these are still derivative works because somewhere down the line, their data was used to create these images. But the Copyright Act defines a derivative work as a work based on one or more pre-existing works, such as a translation, musical arrangement, etc., etc. But derivative works are still protected under the initial copyright of an artist has for a specific work. But the legislative history of the Copyright Act explains that to violate an artist's derivative works, a new work must incorporate a portion of the underlying work. A work isn't infringing if it isn't substantially similar. The complaint isn't stating that any images being generated are specifically substantially similar to their art. They're simply saying the artificial intelligence learned how to draw by studying their work. But how is that infringement? Anytime any artist creates something, they're drawing upon what they've seen, what they've experienced throughout their lives. In this sense, all of human creation is a derivative of something else. An artist's style isn't something that's protectable by copyright. Only the specific expression of an artist is protectable. So if the plaintiffs in this case actually had their way, they would essentially destroy art as we know it, since arguably all of art would be infringing on someone else's work. All of art would be infringing on someone else's work. All of art.
AI art can provide new opportunities for artists to create and display their work in new and innovative ways and make art more accessible to a wider audience. On the other hand, AI art has the potential to devalue the role of human artists, as some people may view it as a replacement for human creativity. Additionally, there may be challenges in the protection of AI-generated art under existing copyright and trademark laws, which could negatively impact artists who create such works. Ultimately, the impact of AI art on artists will depend on a variety of factors, including the quality and style of AI-generated works, public perception of AI art, and the development of legal frameworks to protect the rights of artists in this field. It's an evolving field and the impact is yet to be determined in the long term. One thing is clear, the lawsuits are just getting started and no one, not even this AI, knows what could happen next. Until next time, this is Reels and Gavels.